This is off-grid news. Today I'm going to try to not be too serious. All the articles I could find that thought were worth talking about, or I could think like to talk about, pretty serious stuff. I have Vitaly here to remind me, why are we talking about this, and some positive things to talk about after it, because I don't like that. I don't like this being too heavy all the time. CBC, I don't want to go back in the streets. One woman's fight against eviction. And I picked this specific one because a lot of the Canadians, like CBC and all the global and all the Canadian stuff, like right now, it's like a lot of people facing eviction, people fighting eviction, families living in RVs, families that don't want to be living in RVs that are living in RVs. Like, I would totally love to have a nice big RV and move out to the woods, but that's not for everybody, and especially when you're being forced to do it. Jessica Richard has been living in Sudbury, Ontario. See, Sudbury, Ontario too. That's not somewhere where I think would have a lot of people fighting eviction. Like, I think usually like the GTA. Moose Factory. Moose Factory. There's something like Moose. We have Moose Jaw, that's out west, and then Moose Factory in Ontario. These are funny names. Case manager who handles her social housing contract with Ontario Aboriginal Housing Service OAHS has come to let her know she'll be evicted in the next 30 minutes? How is that okay? You need a warning. Maybe there's more to it. I don't know. Because this is just one story out of several that I was just scrolling through. I don't want to read too many of them because it can get pretty heavy. Like, I'm already pretty upset just about that one. But so there's a theme of economic stuff that I'm going to touch. There's one that the title, it's piqued my interest. It says, Canadian Prime Minister slams the rise in authoritarianism. So I'm like, where is this going? It's Al Jazeera, so it can go either way. It can be pro-Trudeau and like, oh yeah, he's condemning other leaders for being authoritarian. Or it can be like, this dude is straight up authoritarian. So I want to see where that one goes. Either way, I'll have a lot to say about that one. And then Bank of Canada going with the digital dollar. It's tied into another article where the government is just preparing for a bank run in Canada. It's not saying why it's preparing for that. It's just saying it's preparing for that. And so it ties in with this digital currency. So I don't know, like, a lot of people there's pros and cons with the digital currency thing. I'm more on this is BS, no digital currency thing, but I understand the pros to it. But the pros are outweighed by the fact that the government can control every transaction. And some people are like, well, that's good. It was like, no, I would rather deal with, drug dealers, gun smugglers and stuff like that than have the government control every freaking dollar that goes through my bank account. Hey, gun running and drug dealing and human trafficking, that's fine when the government does it. They just don't like competition. Same thing with money laundering. Like, they get so mad when people money launder. I'm like, bro, what is all that money in the Ukraine and Pakistan and all that stuff going on about? So, North Carolina residents urge UN to investigate toxic waste. Here's the acronym, PFAS pollution. Those are the forever chemicals that we're talking about. These chemicals are now. So this article is specifically talking about it being leaked into, or actually just straight up poured into water right now. And they're in North Carolina. Where this all started was us talking about how it's used in the green packaging for fast food. And I made the argument, it's like, oh no, it's not green because it dissolves. It's green because these forever chemicals, PFAS, they destroy fertility in men and women. So it's green because it's going to lower birth rates, which are already lowering. But no, it also does a lot of great things for the kidneys and liver, and people don't need those. Citizens in North Carolina have formally requested the United Nations to, here's the other thing. I understand being mad and trying to, what is the UN going to do? What does the UN do? What's going to happen? The UN's going to investigate, be like, oh yeah, this is straight up not cool, human rights abuses, and then that's it. To investigate multiple alleged human rights violations stemming from the chemical manufacturer. I need to learn how to pronounce words if I'm going to do this. So, toxic PFAS pollution in the region. About 500,000 residents live in the Cape Fear River Basin between some other region and Fayetteville and Wilmington, where chemical has been produced and polluted the region for over 40 years. Residents face an environmental human rights crisis involving pervasive human exposure to toxic chemicals, according to the communication field with UN, Clean Cape Fear, and University of California at Berkeley Environmental Law Clinic. So the substance are a class of about 14,000 chemicals, often used to make products resistant to water. stains, and heat. They are called forever chemicals because they are virtually indestructible and are linked to cancer, liver problems, thyroid issues, birth defects, kidney disease, decreased immunity. That's an important one. That's a whole other rabbit hole trail thing I can go on. And other serious health problems. So these specific chemicals are used for treating products to help them last longer, just like the preservatives in our food. A lot of times when something's designed to make something last longer, it makes us last not as long when it gets into our body. So whenever there's a preservative for it, not just like if it's not just going into your mouth, think about the things that are going on your hair, your face, your like the cleaning products for cleaning your house, and products are for cleaning yourself. How am I gonna make this positive, Vitaly?
I don't know.
I'm getting too down.
I'm searching in my brain right now. Like I knew this.
You know what it is? So this is why I'm so passionate, so motivated for this Off-Grid Your Mind project. Okay, even before I was pushed and for Vitaly got me to start doing this, I was already passionate about all this stuff because I don't know, my brain's broken. I just can't help myself. I have to read about economic crises. I have to find out why and where are we being poisoned. And now, what's changed with me is that I'm really good at complaining and finding things to complain about. But now I'm like, okay, well, let's find solutions. That's what Off-Grid Your Mind is. A lot of it is about. It's about community. It's about finding solutions. It's about just changing your mindset, like off-gridding your mindset, thinking outside the box, like get away from these systems and let's find solutions. Now that I had this happy break because I was getting pretty down, I'll go back into the crap. We got Forever Chemicals in North Carolina. So by the way, I'm hanging from my Good Morning Beautiful mug. I picked that mug because I felt beautiful today. No, I don't. Yeah, so Firm releases almost 800 kilograms of Forever Chemicals a year in Lancashire River. All the British people can get mad at me. I don't know. If you haven't noticed, if you watch consistently, I am bad with pronouncing words. Forever Chemicals is described as being very persistent, mobile, and toxic into a river in Lancashire each year, and they're not breaking any rules. The first one was a company dumping chemicals into a water source in the United States. Now this one's in, I'm guessing, UK. And another important thing is that these are recent. Like, these articles weren't like from a couple years ago. They're from, one's from a day ago, one's from 22 hours ago, and the other one's like from 10 hours ago. And these are just two out of several that just keep, like Guardian's covering it a lot. Like, when I just type in the acronym PFAS and then go to news on Google, it's just page after page of either somebody's complaining that it's being put into water sources, or a study being done on them, like how much worse they actually are, or how they're being put in products that are constantly touching our food, like containers. And then there's also, you gotta remember, like, I don't think this is the case with this, but you gotta remember, when you see something in the news constantly repeat, like, they want you to notice that, and they want you to focus on that, and they want you to get down about it, but they're also like, sometimes it's just BS. Now, I don't think it's BS. Like, I've known for a long time. We've all known, most people know that there's just garbage. Like, the cheapest and easiest way to make stuff is usually the least healthy way. And we all know, like, it's not a big secret that there's companies that will definitely pick profit over human health. I'm telling you, Google it yourself. Check this out yourself. It will get very overwhelming seeing the amount of things that in your everyday household just full of this crap that attacks your head, kidneys, heart, lungs, your, like, it lowers sperm count, it attacks women's uterus. Like, Trudeau's government prepares for a run on banks. Now, this article does not say why they're, like, is there an indicator or anything? They talk about the bank collapsing in the Silicon Valley Bank or whatever. They talk about that a little bit. But the U.S. and Switzerland, I didn't even know Switzerland was having a bank crisis, resulted in the Canadian government granting itself unprecedented authority to prevent financial panic in Canada. I love reading those words. I love it when the government just grants itself powers. Why is it that the government feels those authorities should be granted? Yes, please, thank you for asking, but you don't answer it, so I guess we're not going to get that far here. Bill C-47, a 430-page omnibus budget bill, amends the Canadian Deposit Insurance Corporation Act, allowing the cabinet to guarantee deposits in case of a bank run to the amount that means the minister. Okay, run. I hate how they write these sometimes. The amount that the Minister of Finance determines if it is deemed necessary to promote the stability or maintain the efficiency of the financial system in Canada. The federal insurance currently covers individuals' deposit to $100,000 limit. The thinking is that given the current situation and the banking turmoil we saw in the U.S. and Switzerland, it was a prudent thing to do, testified Rachel Grasham, whatever, Senior Director with the Department of Finance. The bill follows the March 10th collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank in Santa Clara, California, the failure of a Signature Bank of New York on March 12th and March 18th, purchase of faltering Credit Suisse of Switzerland by, I did know that, by the rival USB Corp AG. The purpose of that is to really allow the minister and the government to bring forward temporary measures under extreme circumstances, just to help promote financial stability and safeguard public confidence in the system. The COVID panic. Canada hasn't seen a bank failure since 1985. The collapse of Alberta's Canadian Commercial and Northland banks that cost the Deposit Insurance Corporation $608 million. Two other teetering institutions, the Bank of British Columbia and Central Bank, merged with large rivals. The failure of 36 mortgage and trust companies, including 7. So it is kind of talking about why they're preparing, and it's not good. TD Bank is apparently in a very bad position. I didn't have the time to confirm it yet, but apparently they're on the brink of insolvency, and that's a huge bank. So it said that the current insurance was to cover $100,000, but it didn't say what the new one is. But they moved. All I'm getting from this, because I don't trust the news, I don't trust the government. So all I'm getting from this is like they're in a bad position. Like banks are in a bad position, and the government's gonna what they'll do, what they always do, is they'll set up to protect themselves and frame it in a way that it's gonna help everybody. Nobody else has to do this. This is what I want to do. And this is why a lot of people get turned off to the whole off-grid stuff. But like, just because what I personally want isn't for everybody, but I personally wish and want and trying to get to the point where I can just completely F off. And as much as possible, I know it's not entirely possible to get, but as much as I can. And I know once I get out there, there'll be some things where I think I can just be independent on, and I'll like realize like, oh, like I know there's a lot to learn and stuff. So why Bank of Canada digital dollar would put an end to bank run crisis. The government prepping for a bank run, and then I found this article right after. The collapses, and again, it's about the Silicon Valley Bank. I knew that was going to continue on. I knew that was going to be like a domino effect. But anyway, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, the closing of Signature Bank, and the takeover of Credit Suisse are all recent events that suggested the deposit insurance schemes and tight regulations are not always sufficient to prevent bank runs. Of course, unlimited deposit insurance has the potential to prevent bank runs, but most deposit insurance schemes are limited. For instance, up to $250,000 in the US and $100,000 in Canada, and individual deposits at SVB were mostly over $250,000 and thus uninsured. So depositors ran to withdraw their money when their trust in the bank waned. Though too late to save SVB, the U.S. government moved swiftly and eliminated the upper insurance limit to prevent contagion in the banking crisis. And additionally, the Fed announced an emergency lending program to all banks to ensure depositors that they could access their accounts whenever needed. So it's kind of like what the other article was saying about Canada, is that they're just granting themselves power to calm people down in case of a bank run. Numbers and economy and stuff are not my thing. I just want anybody who might not know this, just talking about this, and like we're talking about it together, we'll figure it out together. To fix all these problems, they want to do a digital currency, eliminate cash. Are you for that?
No, we need cash.
Exactly.
We need everything.
A lot of people are like, well, we basically have a digital currency anyway. Everyone just uses their debit and credit cards, and I'm like, no, there's still people that still use tons of cash. You need to keep that option open. Like we need, like you were saying before, like all the different options. You need to keep that option open. Let's just go to bartering.
But that's another thing. That's another way, and we need it. We need
Yeah.
bartering, and we need new systems that allow better bartering.
I like so I'm not gonna say who it is, but I know some people that they do a lot of their business with just bartering. Like
Good.
they offer services and they'll give services for not for free, but for trade of somebody else's business, like with something that they do. So Canadian Prime Minister slams rise of authoritarianism. In a speech, Justin Trudeau called on like-minded democracies to use economic incentives to combat authoritarianism. Trudeau is concerned about other people being authoritarians.
Sure.
Let's let that sink in for a minute. This son of a bitch who's just, have you noticed his massive gaslighting campaign right now? Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has given a speech denouncing the rise of authoritarianism around the world. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black. Around the world, and calling on democracies to live up to their ideas through the trade and foreign policy. If we don't step up, other forces will step in as like-minded democracies. So Trudeau and taxes, I start swearing. Trudeau said in his remarks on Friday to the Council of Foreign Relations, a think tank based in the United States city of New York City. Even that sentence just pisses me off. His speech took swipes at countries like Russia and China. Ooh, Russia and China. Big, scary Russia and China. While encouraging Canada and its allies to strengthen their commitments to human rights through economic... So, big, evil, nasty Russia and China, okay? Like, the countries that we're not supposed to be like. Is he not going to talk about the bill they just passed about them controlling all social media? So he's so concerned about... I didn't even hate the word. Usually, like, not always. Like, there's exceptions to the rules, but usually when some fucking person that you're talking to just keeps using the term democracy, they're usually full of shit. They usually have the worst takes, too. Like, when somebody keeps going on about democracy, get ready for some of the worst takes you've ever heard. Taking swipes at Russia and China. Allies, and this is... How recent is this article? This article came out yesterday, so within the week... Around the same time that this bill passed about the Canadian government controlling social media, basically, is the same time this guy, try to be nice, has this speech. This is Trudeau. We can't just push back or punish our single out bad actors. We can't just say, for example, that we want our companies to restrict the amount of critical minerals they buy from China. This is interesting. Trudeau turning on China. Are the people paying him knowing he's saying this? Instead, we should simply commit to sourcing our critical materials from places that ban forced labor, that, oh wow, he's actually saying something good for once, that have safety standards that pay their workers a living wage. He later noted the lithium produced in Canada is going to be more expensive because we don't use slave labor. China is one of the biggest producers of lithium, a metal used in mobile phones and electrical batteries in the world, behind Australia and Chile. Trudeau also added that while his administration hopes to cooperate with China on issues like environment, the Asian country has become an increasingly disruptive global power in his estimation. Tensions have been high between the two countries. Ottawa has accused China of election meddling and establishing overseas police stations in Canada. Foreign Ministry spokesperson denied as smears. So this is interesting. It's good and bad. It's good that, but I think it's fake. Like, it wasn't like he just recently had a change of heart and was like, oh yeah, this is slave labor is bad and stuff. Like, these people knew this and they didn't care when it worked for them. But now that tensions are high and they might be going to war with China, they realize, like, okay, we got to change how we talk now, because we need to get we need people to go to war, and we need to change our rhetoric towards China. Now, China's bad guy. Like, I'm glad they're recognizing, like, hey, yeah, lithium mines are one of the most horrific things going on in the world right now. In November, a video also circulated appearing to show Chinese President Xi Jinping chiding Trudeau for alleged leaks in the media about contents of their private discussions. The Chinese Foreign Ministry refuted claims that any criticism had passed between the two leaders, calling their conversation normal. We are going to be contesting China on the issue of human rights whether it's in Xi Jinping or whether it's in Pyongyang. Why can't I pronounce Chinese things better than
English.
yeah?
British.
Why? Hong Kong or elsewhere. Trudeau said on Friday, Xinjiang. Like what? Like okay, I said that just flew. Like it starts with yeah, whatever. China's been accused of stifling independent movements through repression. China has likewise denied committing abuse in those regions. Trudeau my brain was on. Okay, turning his attention to Russia, Trudeau applauded European allies that previously relied on Russian fossil fuels for having moved to instead invest in clean energy alternatives. Canadian pro-oil groups have previously been accused of opportunism amid calls to ban Russian energy products. The Canadian government has been an outspoken critic of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine launched in February 2022, slamming the unprovoked is very interesting words there, Trudeau. Invasion. The war returned to Europe and authoritarianism is on the rise. Yeah, not just in Europe, Trudeau. Antagonistic states around the world are using our economic independence for their own geopolitical advantage. Later in a question and answer segment with the think tank President Richard Haas, the Prime Minister emphasized more specifically Canada's support for Ukraine, highlighting its training of Ukrainian forces and calling for an increase in defense spending. It's not just, war has come back to Europe and we have to be worried about that. It's the underpinning of our system that is being directly challenged by an authoritarian state that must not succeed. He explains, that's why as much as it takes, as long as it takes, until the folly and the mistake of Putin's decision is clear for everyone. Trudeau also offered a version for the end of the war in Ukraine. We know it doesn't end militarily. This only ends with a political resolution of some sort. But Ukraine needs to be able to decide that. While Canadian Prime Minister reserved praise for his U.S. audience, he also called on the country and its allies to step back from isolationism and address poverty and inequality within their borders. This guy's just fucking hot here. We talked about the superiority of our system, but turned a blind eye to authoritarianism, worker exploitation, environmental degradation, and on the side of the world and our prosperity relied on Trudeau. Said, like, this is just okay. It's just getting repetitive and annoying, and I'm just annoyed now.
3 minutes.
Let's go to our podcast. Let's talk about this. That was the news. It sucked. Not my segment, just the news in general.